me try to declare. So this is, you are already familiar. Uh, I'm writing in the same main program. So because main is a static method, whatever method I write must be static. So I will start with the static keyword for most of the program, because I will not be able to get the instance of this particular class. So I'm going to say, let's say, expose it to the public. It's not really required. Let me say that I'm going to write a function called as swap that takes two parameters, int x and int y, and it's going to swap the numbers. So let's say temp x equal to that, x equal to y, and y equal to temp. And you know very well this kind of functions will not work. So let me say this will not return anything. Now let me try to create two variables, m equal to 10, int n equal to 20, and let me try to swap the m comma n. I want to know what is the result. So I'm going to say console write before swapping and I will supply the value m comma n. So this is before swapping, and this one will be after swapping. And I need a console dot read line. So that's a simple program that is trying to call a swap method, and it's going to swap it. And you know very well this kind of functions will not work, because when you are passing, you will notice here that when you pass the value before swapping and after swapping, the things will not work, because by default the values are passed, or the arguments are passed as value. They are not passed as reference. So it is passing like value. So what's the meaning of saying it is passing like value? Is it takes the value of m and makes a copy of that and sends it to the function. Similarly, it takes the value of m, makes a copy of it, and the copy is sent to this function. So whatever you do in this function will not be highlighted in the main program, because what this particular function receives is a copy. So it's as good as you are giving a Xerox copy to the of your marks card to somebody else. So if they tear it off, if they damage that marks card, you are giving a copy, not the original one. So the originals which are here will not be effective. Now what if I really want the reference, in other words the address of this, to be passed on to the other side? In the C programming language you used to write it like pointer. We don't have pointers. Again, it doesn't mean that we can't use pointers. We can, anytime you can use the pointers, but using pointer is not a good technique. You are already familiar with that. So what I'm saying here is, by default it was passing a value. Now I say that I want the reference of this object, of this variable. Now when I say it's a reference, I have to even tell the same thing on the other side, that I am giving the reference of m and the reference of n. So here what I'm doing is the reference is passed to the other side. So what's the advantage of this? If you run it now, you will notice that they are actually changed. The value is changed. This is because now what is happening is, it's not the value that is getting passed, it's the reference of the variables that are getting passed. So here I am passing the ref. So ref refers to the reference. Anything that is passed as a reference means you are sending the address of it. Whatever changes that is made inside this function will actually be highlighted in the main or the calling program. So that is one thing. Let me write one more function here, and let me say public static void sum, and it takes two numbers int x, int y, and I want to return the result itself. So I'm going to say result equal to x plus y. So I'm not returning, look at here, I'm not writing return. The return value of this function is void. So it is returning nothing. The function itself is not returning anything, but I want the values of this variable to be passed back to the calling method. So let me get rid of this. So let me create one more variable here, int say result, and now I'm going to call that sum method. So I'm going to pass the sum m comma n comma result, and if you see the result, let's look at the result now without doing anything. So I'm going to just run this one. You will notice that the result is 0. So what is happening here? Hold on. So what is happening here is the result was initialized as 0, and when you try to pass that result here, the value of this result is passed. You did something to the result, but nothing happened because it's a value. Now I don't want to pass the reference, so I don't want to do like this ref, and I don't want to call this as reference. The reason why I am not interested is I am not going to pass anything to the calling function. I want something back from the calling function. So I am saying that I will not pass anything to you. I want something to be outputted back to me. So how do I do that thing is I specify it as out. So out refers that, or in other words, when we use that out, it means to say that I am able to get the result from this place. So in other words, I am saying, not this one, in other words, I am saying to the compiler that I am not going to supply you anything, but I want something to come out of this function. So this one, what you have seen here is something that is going to go back. So that is the meaning of it. It's the out. We are not passing the reference, or we are not doing anything. We want something back. So let's run this and let's say the result now. And this time you will notice that it's going to, just a minute. You notice that this is the result. So this is the out. So that keyword out says that I am passing the value. I'm not passing any value, but I want something in return. So can I return more than one value? So can I just say out int difference, and I'm going to say difference is x minus 1. Can I get that one? So I'm going to again say int d here, and I'm going to say out b. So I want it here. So I will just make a few modifications. So that I'm going to say this is the sum, the other one is the difference, and this is the. So I'm trying to I'm trying to get two things out of the function. So what I've done here is I have added out difference. I'm doing some calculation and I'm passing it back. Let's run it now. Let's say what is that we are going to get, and you'll notice that it is able to return more than one value. So if you want a function to return more than one value, you can use this out parameter. However, there are few things that you need to understand, and that is, let me not do any calculation with this one. So what will happen if I don't do any calculation with this one? That means to say that I get this bit here, but I don't set any value. I try to close this function, and you notice here it just says that because diff is an out parameter, you will have to supply some value to the diff. So whether you do calculation or whether you don't do the calculation, some value must be assigned to diff. So if you have some condition over here, say switch or if or anything, in the if you say x greater than y, then only you are going to say diff is this one. If you do that, still the compiler will complain you and say that this diff, there is a possibility that if the x is not greater than y, diff will not be assigned any value, so that means it's going to go without anything, so it's not allowed. So if you have if else or any other condition, you must say to it that one of the at least in one of the paths, the value of the out parameters are always assigned. So that is a requirement. Now the next question is, what if you try to assign some value here? So if you supply some value here, what's going to happen? Remember, it's a diff parameter. You will not get any error as such, because this parameter is supposed to return something back. So that is it. So if you supply something to it, and then if you say that now I have initialized something, but it just says that it's not allowed, you will have to do it. So that's not really required that the out parameters need to be initialized, but let's go back to this swap now. I will go to this swap, and you know very well swap takes reference. So I'm going to say m comma n here, and I will do something, okay, and I'm supposed to say it's a ref parameter. This is also a ref parameter. Now I supply them, there is no problem. Now suppose if I supply a blank number like this, so I am not assigned anything to m. If I try to supply it, it just says that it must be initialized. So you cannot supply a unassigned value to the other side. So that's the difference. If it is a out, there is no need that you have to supply a value. It's not really required for the out. But if it's a ref, that has to be initialized. The variable has to be initialized. So that is one thing you must take care during the MCQs. Let's look at some other functions. Okay. There are some functions which take more than one parameters. For example, in the Excel, or you might have seen a function like sum that takes any number of values. So you can supply 5 values, you can supply 10 values. It just takes, so you really don't know how many values are supplied to the function. Can we think of writing a function that takes variable number of parameters? So let's try to get that thing. Again, I have to go for the, remember this static I am writing just because I'm calling this method inside main. If I had some other class, I can omit that static. because main is a static, it will not be able to get any instance method. So I'm going to say int sum. Okay. How do I supply the variable number of parameters? For that we use param. Okay. And I'm going to say I'm going to supply integer array. So array of integers as my values. So let me take s equal to 0 and let me go for each variables in the argument s plus equal to item. Now there is one thing that you must understand, and that is this var. What is the data type of var? Now var is a means of telling the compiler that I am too lazy for giving you the type, you find out the type on your own. So that's the meaning of it. So here you are saying that to the compiler that I will not tell you what is the data type. In this case the data type was integer because it was an integer. Here what I am saying to the compiler that I will not tell you what is the data type. You find out on your own. So at runtime the your program will try to figure out. So this is argument is a array of integer. That means whatever that is there inside this argument must be integer. So it automatically detects this as item as integer. So one important thing, at runtime the compiler must be able to figure out that this is an integer. If there is any ambiguity, the compiler, if the runtime is not able to figure out that what is the data type that it is going to get ultimately, then it will stop and say that I can't figure out what is it. Now why do we have to use var? There are many reasons why we have to use var. Again, var gives you some sort of dynamism. You have written the JavaScript and you know very well in the JavaScript or the PHP or any other dynamic languages that you're saying, we don't have the data type as such. So it does not mean that C is also dynamic. There are a lot of dynamism that is added in the version 4 of C, C sharp. However, C is not completely dynamic language. So here at runtime, somehow you must give a clue to the runtime that this is the data type that I'm going to ultimately give. Now you may be thinking why we have to do it. We will see something called as an anonymous class and creating anonymous object in the later classes, and there you will come to know that what is the use of that. Now I will have to return, I will get a error message here saying that you are not returning anything. So I will just say I'm going to return this sum here. So let's go back to the main program, and I'm not really interested in all these things now. I'm going to just say so int sum equal to sum, and you notice that there are two overloads are there. So it's going to, Visual Studio is going to say that there are two ways in which you can do it. One is this one, the first one, and the next one is the other one. So I'm going to just say I'm going to supply some numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's enough. Now I'm going to say, okay, tell me what's the sum of this. Let me run it now, and you notice that it is sum of first 5 numbers, and that is 15. So you get the variable number of parameter. So can I have a static associated with this? So let's look at the other form of sum. So let me say one more public static int sum or difference. I take a character, okay, and I'm going to say type, think type is a reserved there. I will say typ. Okay, and I'm going to say variable number of parameters, params, and I'm going to say integer arrays. You can make it as double or you can do any other type of arrays. It's not really required that every time you have to use the integer, it's not going to work with the float, or there's nothing of that type. And I'm going to say these are the arguments that are being passed. Here what I'm going to do is int result is equal to 0, and depending upon what is typed here, so if I'm going to say if type is equal to yes, then I'm going to go for a sum. So I'm going to say for each variable in the arguments, result plus equal to item. So if it is yes, I'm going to add it, else I'm going to subtract it. So again I'm going to say for each item in the arguments, result is, I'm going to just going to say that minus equal to item. So what is that I'm doing here is depending upon the value of the type, I take the action. Then again I'm going to return the result, and result is return the result back to the calling function. So let's go back to the, so here what I've done is a very simple one. I have a function that takes a fixed parameter and a variable number of parameters. Okay, I can have depending upon what is the what character is typed. If character is yes, I'm going to sum it. If the character is D or something else, I'm going to subtract it. So let's go over here and let's say how is it going to work. So I will say that sum or difference, and I'm going to pass yes for the first time. This is the fixed part, that is the character, then followed by the variable number of values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, any variable number of parameters are possible, and I'm going to say sum is this one. Next time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same old thing, except that SM is already declared. So I'm going to take SM is equal to sum or difference. Any variable is okay because difference. Now I want a difference here. So this time I'm going to say difference is this. So again I can supply, I don't have to just go like this. I can supply 7, 8, 9, 10. I can supply any variable number of parameters. Let me run it now. Oops. And there is something, there is some bracket that is missing. And you notice that I'm able to get the result. So this is possible. So can I have one more? Let me simply say over here. Can I supply one fixed int? Say int k here. One fixed integer int k. It's going to work fine. So here what I've done is I had this character type, one fixed integer, and then followed by a variable number of integers. So will it work? You notice over here I'm not taking care of that one. In the last time it was before I do this, just tell you that before I do this I'm going to just run it, and let's say okay, before I run this one I have 28 and 55. So now what I'm going to do now is I will take int k, anything. Okay, that means this 1 here, D will be supplied to character type. This 1 will be supplied to int k, and the remaining 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10 will be supplied to this. So it gets 1 less than the other value because that 1 is taken up. Here also 1 is taken up. So it's going to count from 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. That means the whatever value you are getting, it must be 1 less than that. So let's look at that. And you notice it's 27 because 1 is not taken in the for loop. So this for loop now contains, this 1 is given up to this int. So the for loop now contains the arguments. What is argument that is remaining here is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is passed over here and that is taken care by the for loop. So 1 just goes out in the as a vapor, so it's not taken care. So you can have that. Now the question is, can I have other way around? So can I say like this? I will have a set of integers which are varying, then I will have a fixed integers. So here what I'm saying is, I'm having a varied number of integer followed by one more integer. It just says that that's not allowed. So if you want to use it, it must be the last one in the argument. What if you say that no, I will pass a string of k to you? So if you are getting confused, or because if you are just passing the int here, so you may get confused. So I'm saying that the last one must be a string. So I'm going to supply like this to your function. The last one is my string, but still it says it's not allowed. If you are using params, that means it must be the last thing in your function. So even if it is some other data type, it's not allowed. Parent must be the last one. What is the implication of this? It just means to say that you can have only one list of variable parameters. So you can't have this kind of things. So you can't have parents of, say, string of names. This is also not allowed. Why it is not allowed? If you are using parents, it must be the last thing. So this one says that I'm not the last one. Somebody else is there as the last one. So you cannot have that thing. So there can be only one list of variable parameters. You can't have two sets of variable parameters. So that is not allowed. So if you have a variable parameters, then it must be only one list. So that is the one thing that you must know. Let's look at some other things. So let me go for one more type of thing. So let me again go to static. Now you want to write it. This it's not really required. You have to say that public static. Static public is also. I think you are already familiar with this. Let me say that. Okay, I'm going to say int let's say sum1, int x and int y, and the usual thing it returns x plus y. Now I want to make y as an optional one. So what I'm going to do is, if you don't supply y, I will take the value of y as 0. So that is what I want to do. So here what I said is I'm supplying a fixed value to the y. Let's look at what will happen. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say sum1 for the in order to get a difference here, because the 0 will not make any difference in the calculation, I'm going to say the default value is 100. Just to give you a hint as to what is going on. So I'm just changing it, because if you add a 0 or if you do anything with the 0 in addition, it's not going to make any difference. So I'm going to say I want to add a 10 plus 20. Okay, and this is the result. The other result I'm not really interested in. So I just want to add sum1 10 plus 20. So let's run this thing, and you notice that it works fine. There is no 10 plus 20 is 30, so there is no problem. Now what if I say that no, I am not going to give you the second value. So I am giving you the first value, the second value you assume it. So what will happen? I am going to run this one, and this time you will notice it is 110. So it took the default value of y as 100. So you can have that. Now the next question is, can I put the default even for x? So I'm going to say x default is 200. So here, if I run this thing, what will be the value? So I'm supplying 10 here for the x. Let me run it, and you notice that it has taken the default for y, that is 100, and I supplied 10, so that 100 plus 10 is going to be 110. Now what if I go here and I'm going to say I will not supply anything, take both of them as the default. So if I run it now, you notice that it is 300. It took the default from both the sides. So I hope you are able to get that thing. So if you don't supply anything, it just reads the default. Now the question is, last time I said I will supply a value to x, but I am not supplying a value for y. This time I am going to say I am going to supply a value for x, but I am not interested in supplying a value for y. So assume that x is the default and y is required. So if you try to do it, what's going to happen? You will see that here it's going to say that if you are writing the optional parameter, they must come after the required parameter. What is the meaning of that? This is an optional parameter which has a default value. If you are doing that, these parameters must be the last one. So you have to supply the required parameters first, then you can supply any number of optional parameters. So you can even supply double k equal to 200, you can do anything. So it's up to you, but you can't take this x and then get it after the optional parameter. Here what I'm saying is there are two optional parameters are there, followed by a required parameters. That's not allowed. So if you want to have a optional parameters, those must come at the end. So that is the thing that you must notice. So these are really important when you are trying to answer the MCQ questions. So there are a few tricks that can be played with this. Let me write other function, so that I'm not going to waste my time on here. This one. So let's go with the other one. So I'm going to use public static. Say let's say this time I'm using the double because I've been using the int. So let's go for something else. And I'm going to say I'm going to calculate simple interest. What are the parameters that a simple interest takes? So I will say that it's going to take double and principal, this principal or this principal. This is the L or I know someone, okay, something it's going to take time and wait, and you are already familiar. This will return principal into time PTR by 100. It's going to return that. You are familiar with it. Okay. So you notice here P, T and R is given. Okay, so principal, time and rate. This is how it is declared in the definition. So this is how it appears in the definition. So I go over here and I'm going to call something. So say double simple interest is equal to, I'm going to use this simple interest. Now I'm going to say that, okay, so this is what you are saying, that okay, rate must come last, but I say that I'm not interested in the putting the rate at the last. I will supply the rate first. So at the rate of 0.25%. Then I'm going to say I have the principal. I'm not using equal for your kind information. So this is the principal amount. Then I'm going to say what is left out is time, say 10 months. And I'm going to say that show me the simple interest. Let's run it now and let's say, and you notice that it's going to supply something, assume that that's the right value. I really don't know. Okay. But what is important here is you can use the named parameter. So here you are saying that this 0.25 has to go to the rate. So you supply the name followed by the value. But again, you notice a very strange thing. When you are doing that thing, you're not supposed to use that equal. It's a colon that is being used up there. So you can. It's so very flexible that you can use this function in many different ways. So you notice that the C#, unlike the other programming languages, is really very flexible. You can do many things. So even with the functions, you will notice that there are a lot of things you can do with the functions. So let's go ahead and let's look at something else. And what I'm going to do is we are tied with the writing the static word. I'm going to get rid of all this function and I'm going to just keep that main. Just that main and nothing else. And you may get some error message. It's all right. Just the main. Only main is there, and I don't want anything apart from that main. Because some of you may be thinking that this will happen, that you are supposed to write static for every function. This is my class. So this is my class. Let me create one more class. So let's go here and let me create a class. This is the end of the class. So notice that this is the end of the class. After that I'm declaring. I'm not declaring class inside the class. It's not the inner class. So I'm going to say class sum. Say let's say arithmetic. This is a new class. Let me create a function here again. Int sum. I will use the public because I need that thing. It takes a parameter int x. Okay. So it takes the parameter. There is no problem with this. I'm going to say return x. I am not really interested in doing anything. So this is one. Let me copy this thing again and I'm going to do double. Tell me what is that I'm doing at least. What is this I'm doing? Yes? So I will say some value 5. Okay, some constant is being. So this is overloading. You are already familiar. Everybody is familiar. When you are overloading, what is important? What's important? Data type must be different. So can you say, let's go over here. Can you say this as an overload? Is this an overload? Yes. So is this a overload? Yes. So you say yes. So let's go back to the main and let's look at what is that I've done. By the way, what is that I've done? I have two functions. Both of them take integer, but one of them returns an integer, other one returns a double. So you say that int is here, double is here. That is why these two are different. So it takes int, it takes int. So that's not a big deal. So let's go here, and I remember this time I have a class here, so I can directly call it. I have to create an object of this arithmetic class. I'm going to say AR is equal to new arithmetic. Okay, so I have to create an object. That is why I was not all the time. Last time I was doing static because I was calling everything from the static method. So this time I can instantiate that. I'm going to say AR dot sum, and let me use the CW, and I'm going to say AR dot, okay, so I'm going to just use the AR dot sum, okay, and I'm going to supply. It just says, okay, you have this is it's going to say that something else. It's telling me something. So it just says you have this one, you have this one. So look at the first thing. Look at what the compiler choice the compiler is giving. Compiler says that there is an int arithmetic sum and int. So I know that, and it just says I have int and it takes double. So it just takes that thing. Let me supply 25. So what is the output that you must get now? What's the output that you are supposed to get it? I'm supplying 25 now. So what is 25? 25 is an integer. Everybody agrees? Yes. So it must resolve it to this one, and it must return 25. If it is not, I will just say I'm going to return say 245.45. So if it is not, I will return a constant value. So if it is resolved to this one, it must return 25. Otherwise, it must return 245. So I know that, okay, two different values are coming. So if it is getting resolved to this one, it will return 245.25. If it is getting resolved to this one, it's going to return that thing. So, but what is happening over here? It just says that this is an ambiguous code. So if you notice over here, you can read it in your own monitor. It just says that I'm getting confused with this one. Okay, read that thing. It says this is an ambiguous statement. What is ambiguous here? So it just says I can't figure out what is return value. So let me go here and let me reduce its confusion, and I'm going to say I want a return value as an integer. Now tell me AR dot sum equal to 25. So what is that I have done over here? I am saying that, say, take this integer, no problem, but return me an integer. So don't get confused. So I want the take this integer, no doubt, but I want the return type to be int. So that means this time you are saying that I am not interested in the double. I want something as an integer. So look at the what is on the other side. I'm saying exclusively, I'm saying that I want a integer value. So don't bother about something that is returning double to me. I want integer, but still it just says that I can't figure out. So what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that you have not understood the idea of overloading. Okay, when you try to overload, this part is only considered. Return is not part of that overload. So return does not give the signature for overloading. So this is ambiguous for that. So whether you return double, whether you return triple, it's of no use to it. It just looks at this part. If they are unique for this, it assumes that it is the same thing. Okay. So remember, this is one strange thing, and some of you definitely will lose marks because of this statement. So this is not a overload. This is, you are confusing the compiler altogether. The compiler just says I can't resolve it to a specific method, so this is not going to work. Okay. So return type, don't look at the return type whenever you get this MCQs. Don't look at the return type. It's not going to help you. Let's look at some other things. So let's look at a string type of function. So I'm going to say first one is this integer. Second one is the double. Okay, is this let me complete both of them and let's do it now. This time I'm saying that in the second part, this is double, other one is int. So is this overload? Is this an overload? Okay, is this overload? Yes, you return something, I don't care what you are returning. I don't care about what you are trying to return, but because I said int, you are return. Is this overload? Yes or no? Yes. Let's try to call this thing. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say AR dot sum. I'm going to say 5. Yes. Second number is 10.5. Is it a double? 10.5, is it a double? Yes. So what is it it's going to resolve to? The first number is int, obvious. Second number is 10.5. First number is integer. Second number is 10.5. So it must return a 10 to me. Otherwise it's going to return 5 to me. So in both the cases, did I made it as 5? Let's say, otherwise I'm going to say 555. So I know that something is getting returned. So otherwise I will get confused as to which 10 came out. So let me run it now, and it runs fine, and I just deleted some important part of this thing, that is console.readline, because I wanted to. Let's run it, and it resolves properly. Okay, no problem. Let me change my way of calling the method. I will say that first time it is 10.5 and the second time it is 5. So first is double, second one is integer. Let me run it and say 555. So it is able to resolve it properly. Now let me give both of them as integers. In that case, what will happen? Can 5 be a double? Yes. Okay. You can consider 5 as double, but what does it say? I can't figure out. So now what is the problem? What's the problem with this? Now here, I know that compiler has a problem. Now here you are supplying 5 here, and let's say 50 onto the other side. So there are two possibilities it can take. It can assume that 5 as an integer and 50 as a double. That's one way of assuming it. So it may say that, okay, 5 is integer, let me convert 50 as double. So let me go ahead with it. But the same thing can be done in the other method also. Here also it can say that, let me consider 5 as a double, 50 as integer, which is, so there is a 50-50% choice is there. So it just says I can't figure out now. So which one are you saying? Is this the one? So you must be very careful when you try to write a function or when you try to call a function. This can't be resolved. Uniquely it can't be resolved. Last time I exclusively said that you don't go for the conversion. I am giving you 50.5. It knows very well 50.5 cannot be an integer. So it was able to resolve directly to the second one as integer. It was possible. The minute you make both of them as integer, there is a possibility which one has to be converted, which one has to be moved up, or I don't know if it's a word that you are using, which one you want to typecast it as a double. So it is difficult for it to guess. So let's say, let's look at one other problem that you may encounter. When you have a constant, so this is not going to work, so be careful in the examination. If you have, there is no problem with these functions. Only problem is the way in which you are trying to call them. So the way in which you try to call them confuses the compiler, and the compiler says I can't figure out what you are trying to say. Let me go here and let's go to the next one, and I'm going to create one more function in public, and I'm going to say public int, let's say sum, and I'm going to say int x equal to 5. So let me say x equal to something, I will not, y equal to 5. Okay, and I will try to return so that I can see just a small change. I will return something, okay, so that I know what is it is trying to return. X and y equal to 5. So I am returning a string so that I know that this is the one that it is trying to call. X is the x value, y is something that is going to be called. Okay. And you know that there is no problem with this function. Let's go ahead and let me make a copy of this. Okay. And this time I am going to say x is this, y is this, int z. There is no problem as of now. So z is that. Is this a overriding? Definitely it's a overriding, because there are two variables here. There are two variables on the other side. What is it trying to say? I am supposed to supply z before. So 3 variables. It's not a big problem. Okay. Now the question is, if I supply 2 values, which one it is going to take? So here, let's go over here and let me call this sum again. Sum. By the way, I will get rid of all the other methods, because others I have already discussed. I don't want these other methods to confuse me. So I will get rid of this, and I will just keep these 2 methods so that I can focus only on this way at a time. So I'm going to say here, okay, give me this sum. I am supplying you 3 values and 67. So it just says, okay, we got the sum. It just says I need a string. So I'll just get rid of this from here, and I'm going to paste it directly there. So it's a string. It's a string that is returning now. I'm returning a string, not a value. So I'm going to say that, okay, you just return a string. Let me run this thing, and what you notice, x, y and z is resolved. What does that mean? I supplied 3 values, 5, 50 and 67, and there is one thing that takes this 3 value. Now let's go over here and let me supply 2 values. Yes. So what will happen? Yes. What will happen? So 2 values are there. What will happen? Okay. So it just says x equal to y. Okay. Y equal to that. So it is able to resolve it back to this. So let me now do this. Y equal to some value. So z equal to something, z equal to also something. Okay, let's run it. So I'm going to run this one. It is still able to resolve it. So that's not the issue. Now I'll do this one. I'm going to say the first one is only required parameter. The next one is, in both the cases, the other are optional. So what I am saying to the compiler now is, the first one is required parameter, second one is optional, here also second one is optional, third one is also optional. So you take the one that you want. Now what the compiler says is, I can't do it. Okay. Now I can figure out which one I'm supposed to take it. Why? In both the cases, the first one is required, no doubt, but there are 2 possibilities are there. I can think of taking y equal to 5 or I can take z equal to 5 because the next parameter is also optional. So I am not able to resolve the value. So be careful with that. So even though it looks a simple one, but when you try to call, when you supply this default value and when you try to call them, you may suddenly realize that it is confusing the compiler altogether. So it happens. Now 5 is required, but there are two choices are there, either this or the other one. Okay, so you must be careful when you try to call that. So let's go to that. So let's say is